So now we are live. Alrighty. How to write your content in your case study that is actually going to sell whatever your topic for your case study is. What you first have to understand that in order to be able to sell your skills in your case study, you have to be able to understand what sales means and how we can incorporate it in our portfolio, in our case study writing. What is also important that no one is going to sell your skills other than yourself, or maybe I can phrase myself that no one is going to save you other than yourself, which sounds a little bit cruel. Obviously, we want to help each other as much as possible, and there are nice people everywhere. But other than you, no one is really going to help you unless you help yourself. That's why we have to be able to sell ourselves as good designers. Let's just discuss what promotion means. Promotion is basically a kind of a sales technique. The promotion is the process of explaining the value of a product or a potential and existing customer to educate and generate interest and spark purchase. So basically, when I'm promoting my work, I just want other people to like know about my work and buy my work, basically. And this is what most designers approach. Most designers approach case study creation as a making of documentation. Documentation is not what we want. This way, there is no sales or promoting included, just boring explaining. That's why we want to switch up from like, this is the really regular way of most people how they are creating their case studies. It's just basically writing down line by line of what you were doing, which is to some degree is fine because obviously you were making your project, you were doing the project, and now you're telling line by line, activity by activity, what you were doing, but this is not selling, right? In design terms, when we say like selling or promoting your work, it is the time when you are presenting your own work for teams. It is when you are presenting yourself during interviews. It is when you are talking with stakeholders. It is when you're completing your own work, complementing your own work, pardon me. It is when you are complementing your own skills, okay? So it's like, it's also important to understand that most people have really difficult time of talking nice things about themselves. I think our society just in general conditions us to talk always like negative things about ourselves and to just be really narrow-minded and small-minded. This way, we don't really believe that we are capable of doing big things, which is a huge problem. That's why most people are not able to say, let's say, compliment or nice things, or just admit if we are good at something, because we have difficulties in like convincing or like being confident about our skills and like actually articulating it that, yeah, I'm actually good at design. Yeah, I'm actually making value for this business. Yeah, I'm actually good at mathematics or languages, or I'm good at sports, or I'm really good at cooking, or I'm a really good listener. I can really connect easily with people. You know, most people has really troubles and like hardships of like how you are, just to complement your own skills, because this is a must. Like if you don't tell people how good you are, no one really going to know about that. That's why we have to be able to articulate like what are your strengths, what you are good at, and how you can help other people with your skills. And when you're being confident in your work and your skills, this is the time when you can sell yourself confidently. So let's discuss writing your content. The goal of your case study and the content is to articulate your design decisions, promote ourselves and our skills. Okay, this is what we discussed. We want to promote ourselves. We want to convince the HR manager that we are someone who can help the business. And we want to convert strangers into people who want to invite you for an interview, right? Essentially, your portfolio and your landing page, your case studies are a landing page, which is going to convert interviewers or HR people from like random strangers who are looking to hire someone. It's going to convert them into making the decision that they want to talk to you and they want to hire you, or at least listen to you if they want to hire you, right? That will be the first step, that they're going to get in touch with you. But in general, that is the goal of your case study, that you talk about your designs, your skills, you're showing your skills, and you are convincing people that you are really good at what you are doing. And here is an easy example of how we can make this differentiation between boring documentation, which most people would do in their case studies, and a good way of promoting ourselves. So basically, this is a page of a product. I think it's called Rinsing or Rinzler in English. I'm not sure. But as you can see, there is like a product image. There is the title of the product, a product description, really like focusing on the features. What does this product exactly do? And some benefits with bullet points, which is fine. But this is not selling. This way, you are not selling, you are giving information. You are giving the most basic information about your product. But this is not selling. On the other hand, if we are looking at this image, which is not talking about the features, not talking about the benefits, there is not even a title of what it does. But on the other hand, it shows us an image. It tries to convey a feeling, emotion, and this is going to spark more interest and spark more willingness to purchase this product than this one, right? They actually are the same product. I mean, the bottle looks, the shape is like a little bit different, but more or less they are doing the same thing, right? They are from the same company for sure. But there is a huge difference in like how they are displaying themselves and how they wanna motivate people to purchase this product. This is, I would say, the difference between documenting and actually talking about your work in a way that it's interesting to look at, interesting to read, easy to understand, and this way you're going to seem like a good designer. Here are a few common challenges which probably you are facing when it comes to writing your case study content. You don't know what to add to your case study, what is valuable and what is not. You don't know how much information to edit. Attention is limited when HR people looking at your case study. You don't want to add too much info. You don't know how to structure your case study in an easy to digest way. How to make your content easy to digest again, and how to make the content engaging. So even if like somebody's like reading through it, how do I make it in a way that it's not getting boring? And we don't know how to showcase the value of our work for companies. This is which we're going to cover today. So how do we write content that is so informative, not only informative, but also persuasive, which means that it, people just want to talk to us afterwards. Our job is to answer every question which the manager could ever have in their mind, even before they could ask it. Our portfolio and case study is a one-way communication channel, right? It's like a website. If somebody is on our case study, they cannot ask any questions from us. It's just a static website which cannot talk to them. Maybe if you had like an AI chat system or something, but you wouldn't. I don't think you would do that. You want to do that. But the point is that you have to make your case study explanation, your case study about your project, so simple and so straightforward that anyone without any question would understand what the hell you are doing. And this is when, if you just go back to the documentation, is this product good for me? It says the features, it says the benefits, so I would assume that, yeah, it does, but actually there is a lot of text. And I'm not even sure if I might will understand all of the technicalities of this product, because it uses a way of wording, a way of talking to me, which I might not understand as a regular consumer. Same goes here. We want to use really basic language, really straightforward language, give always reasoning of like what you are doing and why you are doing it. This is which we're going to cover today. So this way, they wouldn't have any question. They would understand everything. And this is where we are like getting a little bit distracted, because we want to be really professional and really focusing on like showcasing how well we understand the design methods. But this might be a challenge for the reader. This is what we want to avoid. Most designers just expect people to understand what they were doing, thinking how they are solving the problem, but they don't explain the reason behind it. And this is what, if I ever give you like a portfolio feedback, or if you watch some of my portfolio feedback videos, this is a huge and really common problem which I see amongst designers, that the reasoning is just missing completely. Most designers are just do stuff and then shows the outcome, the result of the project, which is going to be the application, right? But there is also an in-between time when decisions are being made, when you are converting your research into an actual product. This in-between stage, I think I talked about last time. This in-between stage is this part. Okay, so this is the area where decisions are being made. This is the research, where we just want to find out the information. Maybe I want to do it with a different color. This is the research. We are gathering a lot of information, and then we are synthesizing and understanding the information. Here we are making the decisions. Okay, this is an important problem. This is an important goal. This could be a good idea. Yeah, I'm making these ideas. These are good ideas, which I want to turn into the application. You are making the decisions here. This is where you are making the flow chart. This is where you're making early wireframes, perhaps. This is where you're writing your how might we's. This is where you're using an affinity diagram to prioritize your feature ideas. This is where decisions are being made, and this is the part which most people are leaving out. So once I have the research, once I have the decisions made, then I'm going to have, it's not really visible, then I'm going to make my actual application here in this part, okay? And this is what most people are like missing, that they are doing research here and they immediately jump here. This is bad, because you are completely missing the point of this whole designing, which is making data-based, data-driven decisions. This is why we are getting paid. This is why our job has a relevancy, because we are not just making designs just because we feel like we want to make something nice, even though some people expect us or think that this is what we are doing, but this is wrong. What we are doing, we are identifying the market, identifying the users, talking to the users, figuring out their problems, their pain points, their goals. Based on what they told us, we're going to brainstorm some actual cool solutions for their problems, and then we're going to turn those solutions into an actual application at the end, which is going to be here, right? At this stage. So again, what you want to do the research, understand the research, turn the research into solutions, then turn the solutions into actual an application, okay? Why we are talking about this one? Because most people are leaving out this middle section of like, this is the ideation part, okay? This is when you are turning the ideas into solutions. And this is what most designers are just forget. And this is where they are jumping from research to the final design immediately, which we wanna avoid. Because if we do that, people are not going to understand how we get to certain conclusions. If they don't understand how we get to conclusions, they're going to think that we are not good designers, we are just doing stuff. And in real life, this has happened to me several times, especially when I was like a younger designer. To be honest, I was missing a lot of steps along like the design thinking process. And I literally did that. Like I acted if I was doing research, and then I just designed something, but there was not really connections. And a lot of times, you know, senior designers or HR people or people during the interview were catching me on of like, they just don't feel like that I made like, you know, research-based decisions. And in reality, I really did not make that kind of decisions. I just did what I thought is nice. And I kind of like was faking research. But unfortunately, this shows in your work. So that's why I wouldn't recommend doing that. And this is the gap which during interviews, they really want to see if you're understanding what you are doing. This is the gap which most people are missing. But if you're focusing on this project process and actually talking about the middle section, okay, the ideation part, this way you're also going to consider more options. This way you can highlight the complexities of your design. Also, if you understand your design process better, you can explain your design process better as well. If it's easy to understand, then your presentation is much better. Eventually, people are going to trust you more, and you will have to spend less time on writing your copy, because at the end, you know, if it's more straightforward, it's easy to understand. You are just talking about what you are doing, then you don't have to spend that much time. So we have to follow a framework which is called value-based writing structure, which basically means that we want to first talk about what you were doing. Okay, what is the method or the activity which you were doing? Then you want to give a reasoning. Okay, here is what I did. Now here is why I did it. What was the reason for doing that activity? Now you want to talk about how you were doing it. Okay, so for example, I did an affinity diagram because I wanted to prioritize my features, and I was using sticky notes in FigJam to do that. That would be like an easy example. Then if you have any additional reasoning of why you made certain decisions, you might want to add this one. And if you have anything else as well, you can edit this one. So let's discuss the first one, what I did. And this is the most important part, but I think most of the confusion is happening. If you go through the double diamond stage, 4 different stages: discover, define, develop, and deliver. Normally, when you write your case study, I recommend following this structure though, because normally these are the different stages which you had to go through. Here. So these are the different stages which you had to go through. And in each stage, you more or less, hopefully, let me make it smaller. Okay. So in each stage, you probably had to do different activities which were leading you. So for example, in the research, you were maybe doing user interviews. Okay. Maybe we're doing user surveys. User survey. You maybe were observe users. So let's say you got on a new project, and these are the activities which you do. Whatever, just imagine any of your projects which you were doing. Okay, and imagine like what were the different steps which you were doing when you did your project. Okay, those going to be the activities. I'm putting this here as like example of how you can do that. Yeah, it's here. So for example, in the research phase, I might do something like this. In the converge phase, I might going to write, how might this? How might we? I might probably going to write a problem statement. Maybe even a user needs statement. Whatever. The point is that these are the activities which I'm really sure you know a lot of them, and probably if you did any of your projects, this is what you had to do as well. In the middle section, I'm going to use an affinity diagram. I might going to start making user flow, or maybe even a user journey. And eventually, I'm going to start to make the wireframes. And the prototype. And I'm probably going to do a user testing as well at this point to just see if I'm doing the right things. But these would be, I would say, like one of the most basic activities which you more or less going to do during your design process. Okay. This process, right, starts from here, going that way. This is the end, right? And that's why we have 4 different stages that you can see: discover, define, develop, and deliver, right? So this is what you have to do with your case study. Just go back, check all of the activities which you were doing, put them in the right bucket, which area where you were doing that. And this is how you can discover of like what you were doing. This is immediately going to give you much more clearance on like, okay, how should I structure my case study? This is how you should structure your case study. Just talk through the activities. And now this is the second part. We're going to talk about the why. Okay, so it's not enough to just tell that, hey, I was doing user interviews. I was sending out 10 user surveys or like 20 user surveys. Here is my problem statement. Here is my user need statement. Here is an affiliated diagram. If you just give this information, it's not enough. We want to explain why you did that, okay? What value-based outcome your action brings? This is the question which we want to answer. Like what is the goal of you doing that? And usually designers give only the what and the how, and often designers do an action for the sake of doing an action instead of having a clear reason on why they choose that method or activity over the other ones. No one wants you to spend time on an activity which you don't know why you are doing that. And most designers have been taught an activity-based approach, which is when you start out with the activity, instead of the outcome-based approach. So what's the difference between them? Again, activities, these UX methods and UX activities, UX things which we are doing as designers. These are the activities. It's a commonly used user activities. Designers do activities as a rigid process instead of thinking behind it, like what was the reason of doing that. For example, user persona. What UX methods, tasks should I do for this project? This is usually what we are thinking. And we usually do this because most of the online courses or bootcamps which we ever learn design from, they usually do teach us this approach of like, okay, here are the design methods, design activities, this is what you have to do. And then it tells you how to do it, and then you are doing it. But there is not really an explanation of like why you actually do this. And if you're going through like a course or a bootcamp or whatever, usually they don't really have time to explain that, unfortunately. How is an outcome-based approach would look like? So the way how it would look like, first, we want to identify what the outcome is, what we want to achieve. And then we're going to pick a method, a UX method, an outcome, which is going to be based on the outcome, okay? So it's not like first I'm going to decide that I want to do a user interview and then I'm doing the user interview. First, I want to understand like what is my goal in the research, and based on the goal, I'm going to decide if the best tool would be a user interview, maybe a user survey, maybe a desk research, maybe a stakeholder mapping. I didn't put all of the UX methods here. But for example, a UX survey is not always the best thing to do. A user interview is, again, not always the best thing to do. Maybe you already have a problem statement. You don't need to write that. Maybe you don't have that much feature, so you don't want to write an affinity diagram. So again, the activity going to depend on your project and on your needs. Okay, so that's why we have to approach it from the different lens of like what I want to figure out, what is my goal, and then choose a UX activity based on that. So for example, let's say here is a research tool called competitor analysis. I would probably put it in the discovery phase. Analysis. Okay, this would be somewhere here in the discovery. But I'm not just doing a competitive analysis just because someone tells me to do it, or just because I know that in my previous project, this is what I was doing, so therefore I'm going to do it now. No. I'm going to do a competitor analysis because maybe I want to find out more UI inspirations based on like the visuals they use. If I do a competitor analysis, maybe I want to identify the features and see the gaps what other applications has got. Maybe I want to see their content strategy in their applications. Maybe I want to see common design patterns in the industry. Maybe I want to see where my competitors are making mistakes or leaving out features, therefore I can make better features in my application. Maybe I want to see the information architecture differences between applications so I can build up my own better. Right? These are the outcomes. This is just a few outcomes which going to come from doing a competitor analysis, right? So in this stage, when you're making this decision of like what UX method I want to use, you have to see your goal first of what you want to first do. Because if you do a competitor analysis, you can focus on all of these, but you probably don't need all of these, right? That's why we want to start from like first, like, are you looking for UI inspirations? Are you looking for feature gaps? Are you looking for their content strategy? Are you looking for like how the application is being structured, what features they have, what target demographics they might aim to achieve? And then if you need any of those, then you're going to do a competitive analysis, right? Here's a case study example, what most designers would write. Let's say you are a designer and you're designing a profile page for your application. I conducted a competitive analysis for the different profile sections across different apps like Costa, Headspace, Instagram, and more. This way you basically answer the first question, what I did, but there is no why, right? So if I just put this in my case study, I'm going to tell exactly like, hey, I was doing a competitive analysis for the different profile section across different apps, but there is no continuation, there is no reasoning of why I'm doing this thing. If there is no reasoning, it's kind of blurry why you did that activity. So here is another copy, which is going to tell the same thing, a little bit longer, but with more explanation on the why, on the reasoning, okay? So in order to identify how to structure my profile sections in my screen, I did a competitive analysis. So far, it's like kind of the same thing, but I'm going to continue writing my case study, okay? I find one of the most prominent features on the profile pages is the ability that users can edit their profile and details. Most apps has some sort of personalization features built in to make it seem more unique for each user. This made it clear that I have to include options for users to be able to edit their profile easily without much hassle, so that they feel more engaged and more connected with the application, and they're going to feel it more their own. Okay, so the difference here, that here I'm just telling what I was doing, and that's it. Here, I'm actually having sort of like a story and a reasoning behind everything. This is why I made the decision. This is what I was doing. This is how I was doing it, and this was the outcome of me doing that in just like 4 paragraphs or 4 sentences, right? But it's much more personalized, much more reasonable, makes more sense, more logical. Therefore, if people are going to read like, hey, I just did a competitive analysis, here is the result, it's like, what the hell? If you actually tell like, hey, I was doing a competitive analysis, this is why I did it, this is how I did it, this is what I found out, this is how I'm going to use it in my application, boom, immediately it makes much, much more sense. And if anyone going to ever read your case study copy, they immediately going to understand what you mean, how you're working, how you're thinking, and you're going to have a much better chance, because most people only write this kind of things in their case study. And if you now realize that maybe this is something which you do, don't worry, because this is where everybody's starting from, okay? And the reason why you're listening to me, because you don't want to be that way, all right? So it's not a problem. The problem is if we are keep making the same problems, okay? Making a problem is never a problem. Keep making the same problem is a problem. If you don't answer the why in your case study copy, the hiring manager will see the gaps and get confused. They won't understand your design process, and it will hurt your credibility as a designer. This is not good. So how to showcase the outcome of our activities clearly? For example, let's say this is the outcome which we want. As an outcome, I want to have a clear understanding of the problem you are trying to solve. This is the outcome, okay? I might can use user surveys, competitive analysis, stakeholder interviews, mind mapping, speaking to customers from the customer support team, right? Again, if you are coming here and we have all of these UX tools and UX methods, I'm not going to just choose one, which I think is like a good option. First, I want to identify what I want to have, what I want to do, what I need. And then based on my need, I'm going to choose one of these activities. Here is one more outcome which I might want to have. I want to have understanding if users can complete the user flow of checking out from my e-commerce application. This is the outcome which I want to have, okay? So for this outcome, what are the activities which I might can use? I might could do a guerrilla usability testing, a design critique, expert interviews, prototype testing, user flow diagrams to see how it could go wrong. All of them are viable, but before you could choose it, you have to understand which one, what you first want to achieve and why you want to achieve it. So this way you can choose the most suitable one for your project. Why this approach is so good? It's going to help you to stand out from general designers. It's going to give you more confidence when you're presenting and just generally talking about your projects, because if you can give like a good reason and the why behind your decisions, you can talk much clearer about your designs. This way you don't have to copy anyone's copy in their case study, or you don't have to copy their designs, their case studies, because you're going to write your own, because you were the one who was doing all of these things, right? We are not just copying someone, we are going to make our own decisions. And eventually hiring manager is going to understand your logic and advance your career much faster. Yeah, and by the way, this advance your career much faster is important because these methods and these ways of thinking and talking about your work and solving your work and making your UX design work in general is not only working when you want to find a new job. It's also going to work, and it's also going to work in your favor when you are already in one company and in one job. In many cases, you're going to need to present for stakeholders, for senior designers, for people from other teams, and you want to convince them that your ideas and whatever you're doing is valuable. And in this case, if you can keep referring back to the why and you can make them understand your decisions, then they're going to give you points and they're going to believe you. If you don't do that, if you keep having gaps in your decision making, if you cannot really articulate why you are making what you are doing, they're going to lose interest. They're not going to trust you. If they not understand you, they're not going to think that you are good at what you are doing, and it's not going to be a pleasant experience. But if you follow this structure, first understand what you want to do and then choose an activity based on that, then they're going to trust you, and then they're going to listen to you much more. So now we might want to talk about the how. This is, I would say, the simplest one. Yeah. So it's basically, I would rather say, like, I think the how is quite straightforward. What I would add to here, that you want to complement your text, right? Your copy, if you have the copy, you want to complement it with as much like visuals, hopefully like real images or images from your FigJam board, if possible. So this way you can show that you were actually doing the things. And now decisions which I made, or in this case, you were the one who made the decision. Most cases it's not the actual design which is confusing, but the lack of the ability to explain the value in your thought process behind it, which makes people confused. Again, in simple terms, maybe what is not working is not your actual design. Maybe your actual design, what you did, is really good. It's working. It's fine. But if you cannot articulate why this design decision is a good design decision, people are not going to believe you. Therefore, they're going to think it's not a good design. Therefore, we have to learn how to articulate our design decisions, because if we cannot do that, people are not going to believe that our design is good. Even if it's good, they just won't. And good design skills are not enough. You have to be able to communicate what you did to get out of a certain activity. So we can do this following these 3 steps. We want to list the activities, identify decisions, and communicate the decision. So this is what we were talking about so far. We want to list the activity, which we were doing in certain stages. This is going to be the first job to do so. Then we want to identify the decisions, the why behind the decision, how you get from one point to the other point. This is, I would say, this diagram, which I told you. How do you get from point A to point B? And just a quick idea here. The idea itself is nothing, but the way how you're getting to the end product is where the magic happens, right? We all had like really good ideas in our life, but the execution is what makes the idea I mean, not the idea, but the actual outcome, right? A lot of people have really good ideas, but a lot of people just lacks, just going after what they want and actually doing that stuff. And when you're doing the stuff, this is the juicy part. This is the part where, the magic is going to happen, because you're going to need to navigate business needs, user constraints, obstacles, challenges while making your idea into a reality. And this is the part where, you're going to face with difficulties, with backlashes, and this is the part where you can learn the most, by the way. But just in general, this is which we want to capture in our case study. This is the middle section. It's not the beginning, it's not the end, it's the middle where all of the big things are happening, and this is what we want to put an emphasis on explaining. What were those things which were affecting your decision making, the reason why you made your decisions, the reason why you used that design method over the other one, the reason why you were having this challenge in your project. Okay. And I think more or less that would be it for today. There's still some stuff which maybe I'm going to cover in a later day. But just in general, I will leave it here. Okay. This was today's lecture. Thank you for being here. Now, guys, we are like 7 or 8 of us here in this call, which is really awesome. I hope you learned something new today. If you now have any question which is either related to any of these topics, or if you have a completely different question, this is the time to ask it. If you want, just pull up the chat here. Okay. And then you can just ask a question. Maybe if you're okay with that, you can also like unlock your microphone. You can ask me straight if you want. Okay. If you guys are going to have any questions, that's also fine. Perfectly fine. Don't worry. I'm going to add this recording to the group so you can watch it back if you want to. So yeah, any questions? Maybe. No questions. Okay, if there won't be any questions, am I just going to call it a day? I know it's really late for you guys as well. I know that, I mean, probably for some of you or most of you. For some people, it's quite early on, actually. So yeah, thanks. All right. Welcome, Anna, anytime. If you guys have any further question, maybe about even this topic, you can feel free to message me on Skool or in the Skool group. Thank you very much for all the information. And yeah, I know it was like a lot of information. I understand that. And to be honest, like being completely frank with you, probably if I would have heard these informations like 5 years ago when I started designing, I'm not sure if I would have understood everything. So if you feel like still confused about what is what, just come back to this recording. Try to incorporate as much as you can. Try to do your best. And that's it. When we explain why we did a process, it would result in having too much text. Would that be okay? Yeah, it's definitely something which you have to moderate. So too much text is also not okay. You have to explain yourself. This is what I said, like in a straight, easy to understand way. So, you can talk about something for hours without someone understanding it, and you can talk about something in easy to understand simple terms, which is much more easy to understand. This is something which you have to look out for. You don't want to use too much text. Also, you probably have to prioritize of like what you want to talk about, because even if I was doing my project, and even if I was doing all of these design activities, I might not going to talk about and show all of them, because they probably not all as relevant for the project, or not all of them equally relevant for the project. And the hiring manager probably don't need to know about all of them. So this is also something which you have to prioritize when you are doing the design. Case study explanation. That not all of the activities and not all of the things which you were doing in the project is equally relevant. You also have to look out for sort of telling a story here. It's not just like, here is what I did. You actually have to add the story and highlight the things which is like relevant and important in terms of like understanding your story. This is another topic for another day. Okay. You can use ChatGPT to help shorten. Yeah, it's also true, but I would say like ChatGPT gives really, really, really generic answers. So you have to prompt it really well, and usually don't take granted whatever ChatGPT gives you, because actually people nowadays pick up on if you are using ChatGPT in your case study and in your copy. So I would recommend you can use it as a guide, and you can use it as like brainstorming tool, or maybe for research, by the way, for UX researching is really awesome, by the way. But in general, people pick up on if you're using too much ChatGPT or if you're making too generic content, and they just going to disregard you with your solutions. Okay, so don't use it too much. You still have to make your own content. You still have to write your own content. You still have to understand yourself what you are doing, because if you are giving bad prompts for ChatGPT, you're going to get so generic outcome that everybody is going to pick up on that it's made by AI. And if they understand and feel it's generic, people are not going to really enjoy and like your case studies. So that would be my advice. But nevertheless, you can use it for sure. Okay, guys, let's call it today. Thank you very much for being here. It was a pleasure talking to you as always. Take care, guys, and see you soon. Bye-bye.